Let's now shift focus to the big story that we want to track on. It's budget fireworks in Parliament. The Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman today spoke on the finance bill. In her reply to the budget debate, she countered all the points made by the opposition against the Modi government's handling of the economy. On inflation, on jobs, some of these are very pet issues of the opposition that they like to beat the government's record with. She countered by showing how the NDA's numbers were better than that of the UPA. Even on the charge of favoritism shown to two states, Andhra and Bihar, because obviously the Modi government 3.0 is dependent on allies in these two states, she countered by saying how UPA budgets had omitted a number of states from 2004-5 onwards all the way till 2013-14. But she was silent on what has been arguably the fiercest criticism of this budget. And the fiercest criticism has come not just from the opposition, it's come oftentimes from the middle class, oftentimes supporters of the Modi government. The biggest point of criticism has been the removal of indexation benefits as far as real estate is concerned and capital gains on real estate is concerned. There's also concern around increasing long-term and short-term capital gains tax. The finance minister did not make any direct reference to these pressing issues, but in what was seen more as a quasi-political speech, has she managed to rebut the opposition's charges against this first budget of the Modi 3.0 term?
स्पीकर सर, देखिए, जितना मेरा आप लोग इंसल्ट करना चाहते हैं, आप खुशी से करिए, आप रोज करिए, मगर एक बात मत भूलिए, जाति जनगणना को हम यहां पास करके दिखाएंगे।
कर्नाटका की कांग्रेस गवर्नमेंट ने SC/SC/ST फंड से बजट में 9,980 दिए हुए बजट से 4,301 करोड़ ट्राइबल सब प्लान से निकाला गया। उसका पता नहीं चल रहा कहां गए।
जमीन अधिग्रहण बिल को आपने कमजोर किया, उनको आप सही दाम नहीं देते हो। इस चक्रव्यूह से निकलने के लिए उन्होंने आपसे सिर्फ एक चीज मांगी है, दो चीजें नहीं मांगी है, सिर्फ एक चीज मांगी है। उन्होंने कहा है कि हमें लीगल गारंटीड एमएसपी दे दें। आपने उनको बॉर्डर पे बंद कर दिया, रोक दिया, आज तक रोड बंद है। आप उनसे बात करने को तैयार नहीं है। वो यहां आए, मुझसे मिलने आए, आप उनको अंदर नहीं आने दे रहे थे।
National Commission on Farmers, MS Swaminathan, had recommended in 2006 minimum support price should be at 50% more than the weighted average cost of production. This was not accepted by the UPA government.
पहला काम इस चक्रव्यूह ने क्या किया? जो हिंदुस्तान को रोजगार देते हैं, स्मॉल एंड मीडियम बिजनेसेस हैं, जो करोड़ों युवाओं को रोजगार देते थे, उन पर इस चक्रव्यूह ने आक्रमण किया। कैसे किया? नोटबंदी, जीएसटी और टैक्स टेररिज्म।
Total persons engaged during the UPA time, annual survey of industries कहता है कि कोविड पैंडेमिक के टाइम, हमारी सरकार के टाइम से ज्यादा डिक्लाइन उस समय हुआ टोटल पर्सन्स का एंगेजमेंट में। दिस इज अ डेटा अबाउट 2012-13 एम्प्लॉयमेंट टोटल पर्सन्स एंगेज डिक्लाइन हुआ उस समय।
मैं ये फोटो समझाना चाह रहा हूं सर, इसमें ये जो बजट का जो हलवा है सर, ये बट रहा है। और इस फोटो में सर मुझे एक ओबीसी अफसर नहीं दिख रहा, एक आदिवासी अफसर नहीं दिख रहा, एक दलित अफसर नहीं दिख रहा मुझे। ये हो क्या रहा है सर? सर देश का हलवा बट रहा है सर, और इसमें 73% का एक है ही नहीं। 20 अफसरों ने हिंदुस्तान का बजट तैयार किया है। 90% लोगों में से सिर्फ 2 हैं, एक माइनॉरिटी और एक ओबीसी, और इस फोटो में एक भी नहीं है।
मैं पूछ रही हूं तब बाय दैट टाइम, क्योंकि आवर लीडर ऑफ द ऑपोजिशन बाय दैट टाइम वाज अ फुल एक्टिव लीडर। उससे पहले ऑर्डिनेंस फटा भी गया, वो इंडिपेंडेंस दिखाया विपक्ष के नेता। क्यों उस समय फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर तब की, उनसे ये पूछा नहीं गया कि कितना एससी है भाई, आप नीचे जा रहे हो फोटो के लिए, बोलो, नहीं तो वो हलवा में कैंसिल करूंगा, क्योंकि उस समय वो पावरफुल थे ना, रिमोट कंट्रोल था ना।
All right, let's open this up. Guru Prakash Paswan, national spokesperson of the BJP, is joining us. Mohan Kumar Mangalam, spokesperson of the Congress Party. Mohandas Spies, chairman of Aaron Capital. Rajat Sethi, political analyst, also joining us. Guru Prakash Paswan, the charge against the finance minister is while she was giving data about how inflation numbers were worse in double digits when the UPA was in power, on jobs numbers, her claim is that jobs unemployment figures were worse when the UPA was in power than even during COVID. While she may have rebutted that, the central point is the biggest criticism against the budget, the union budget that was just presented last week, has been from the middle class. Has not been from the opposition, it's been from the middle class, and it's been on the removal of indexation benefits on real estate when it comes to paying long-term capital gains tax. There was no reference to that at all today in the finance minister's reply.
No, Zaka, you see, there would always be criticism with respect to budget. India is a huge country, and there are always some list of demands, a list of requirements. But if you look at it comprehensively, I think we have witnessed two black swan events. The one is obviously the COVID pandemic and the Russia-Ukraine conflict. And if you do any objective or a dispassionate academic analysis, you would see that we have done an outstanding job. Especially, I consider this budget is premised on three very important and three very remarkable pillars, which is growth, jobs, and fiscal prudence. And if you see a huge investment of 11.11 lakh crore in terms of infrastructure, do you indicate or do you suggest that it will not have any impact on the lives of our middle class? I think that is preposterous. Obviously, there would be set of demands, but when we say Zaka, when we say that fiscal prudence is one of the key pillars, when we say that the deficit pegged at 4.9% of GDP in the current fiscal year, and we are targeting it to be 4.5%. And also consider the growth rate, which has been consistently since the last 3 years for 8.36% and the last year of 8.2%. And please notice this, that the global GDP growth rate was about 3%. So I think considering the turmoil globally, considering everything, India has emerged as a bright spot. Obviously, like I said in my beginning observation, that there would be criticism, there would be certain things, but the fact of the matter remains that we have to take everyone along. Social inclusivity, regional inclusivity has been the key pillar of
I'll come to social and regional inclusivity, but Mohan Kumar Mangalam, on the point that Guru Prakash Paswan made, you had COVID, you have the Russia-Ukraine war, now you have the Israel-Hamas war. Despite all this, to steer the economy, last year growing at in excess of 8%, this year poised to grow in excess of 7%, and to maintain fiscal balance, to maintain fiscal prudence, 4.9%, under 5% compared to GDP. That is a remarkable achievement.
Zaka, where do I start with Mrs. Sitharaman's speech? I mean, there was a portion of that speech when she actually said that there's a nexus that's conspiring to destroy the India story. I mean, I know Mrs. Sitharaman does not take kindly to hard questions or criticism, but to hide behind the veil of what is clearly jingoism masquerading as patriotism is certainly a new low for the finance minister. In fact, it's almost as ridiculous as this internship program that she's proposed, which is supposedly for only 500 companies. You know, I'm tired of this government, and I think it should be tired of itself driving while looking in the rearview mirror. If all they're going to do is go back now even further beyond 10 years and keep talking about how they're doing such a better job than the UPA, then they haven't learned the lessons that the 2024 election sought to teach them, which is that they've come below majority now. They were denying the fact that unemployment is even a problem. I remember the Prime Minister's speeches in the last leg of the election saying how they've generated 6 crore or 10 crore or whatever fictional number of jobs. Now they've finally come to talking about employment-linked incentives instead of just production-linked incentives. And even there, they seem to be limiting it with some sort of hodgepodge, only top 500 companies that really employ only 1% of the workforce. And it's almost the way they've structured it is it's a wage subsidy versus an incentive to hire. Now, let's get it straight. The problem with employment, which is also what the economic survey pointed to, saying that we need to create about 80 lakh jobs going forward, is that the private sector is not joining the party when it comes to investment. They haven't been able to do anything to excite the private sector to increase investment, and that's represented in the gross formation fixed, the GFCF, as a percentage of GDP, which is basically the same as it was 10 years ago. There's been barely any improvement in that statistic. if you look at further into the budget in terms of what they've done for healthcare or education, they haven't hit the mark where they need to in healthcare, which is 2.5% of GDP. And this is the lowest their proportion to education in 20 years. So the budget has made cuts in different places. They talk about being an agri budget. They said they were going to double farmers' incomes by 2022. What happened? You have another budget where they've cut subsidies on fertilizers and food subsidies.
Okay.
So what are they fooling? When Mrs. Sitharaman, I'll just make one point.
Yeah.
When Mrs. Sitharaman says that we refuse to implement the recommendations of the Swaminathan Commission, she's being half truthful about it. Because there were 200 plus recommendations, 175 of which the Congress party implemented. And in every declaration, every manifesto we've had since then, we have promised that when we come to power, we will recommend.
No, the single biggest recommendation is that MSP will be 50% plus cost. But anyway, let me ask TV Mohandas Pai to please explain to our viewers, many of whom are also middle class, many of whom are also upset at this budget. What is the big thing that irks you, Mr. Pai, about this budget? And has the finance minister replied sufficiently to address that concern in her reply today?
Zaka, let me first clear the noise here. The economy has done very well since 2014 till now, going up from 113 lakh GDP to about 296 lakh crores. 113 lakh crores. From 2 trillion to 3.6 trillion, which is a remarkable achievement, despite COVID having a negative year of growth. Every year, if you look at the EPFO, formal jobs, new people in the formal economy is 1.6 crores, out of which about 52-53% is people in the age group 18 to 28. Jobs are being created in this country, but they're not well paying. 80% of jobs pay less than 20,000 rupees. So it's a challenge. We need better paying jobs. And that will only require more economic growth. As for investment, we are investing 31% of GDP, more than $1 trillion a year, with 35-36 lakh crores coming from the private sector. I don't know where these people get all this data. You look at the national income statistics, 29% of GDP is savings, 31% is investment, and that is $1 trillion. There are only 3 countries which spend more than $1 trillion in investment, out of which about $250 billion is coming from the government, center and state. So there's a huge investment happening. They look at the silly CMI data, which is based upon intent, not the investment from the balance sheets of all those companies, because much of them is maintenance and expansion. Industry will invest when they want to build further capacity, and all industries across the board, cement, steel, power, roads, they're all building up huge capacities. So I don't know where these gentlemen get the figures from, and I think investment is coming. Now, why is the middle class angry? The middle class is angry because in the last 10 years, the middle class has borne the brunt of all the tax collections that have gone up. The government spending, I think, has gone up from 16 lakh crores in 2014 to 48 lakh crores. Much of it has come from income taxes, it's come from GST, where the bulk of the consumption is the 40 crore people who are among the middle class. 40 crore people, all right? And these people are paying to the nose. Now, for income tax, it was 2.50 lakh as the exemption limit in 2014. If you use the index inflation, it should be 3.68, 3.7 lakh, 7 lakhs per person. It has not gone up in tune with inflation. And when you look at inflation, it is not that CPI inflation that people are bothered about. It's the school fees, college fees, EMI going up and house rents going up, which are not captured because the data is based upon 2011-12 weights and the middle class is paying for it. Today, 8 lakh crores of subsidies, 4 lakh crores by the center, 4 lakh crore by the state or more is going to people below the poverty line, which is a very huge subsidy for any country of our size. And that is very, very huge. And the middle class is paying for it. Our quality of life has not improved. So why are they angry? They're angry because they took away the indexation benefit. The indexation of the benefit against inflation. Today I heard the finance secretary or the revenue secretary saying effective tax rate for 10 lakh returns on capital gains on land and building is 11.54%. But that is after indexation. Now they removed indexation, increased the tax to 12.5, and he is saying it's a marginal increase. But he forgets it's after indexation. So people are angry. Give us indexation till 31st of March 2024, then reduce the rate and unify it is perfectly fine. That's all right. Then they say that, up to 7.75 lakhs because of the 25,000 rupees tax rebate, you don't have to pay tax. That's true under the new one. But the fact remains, if you get 8 lakhs and 9 lakhs, the rebate goes away. It's only for people below that limit. Why don't you simplify it and tell people we'll raise the exemption to 5 lakhs and don't file returns? Today you have to file returns above 3 lakhs, and that is another mess. Then capital gains went up, and then when the the finance secretary said yes, capital gains. No, let me finish this. That is important. Capital gains, has gone up. We may, it's very low for this country. He said 88% of people who pay capital, who have capital gains are above 50 lakhs and about 66% above 1 crore. But he forgets that income includes capital gains. Capital gains is a one-time income. It does not come every year. Every year it does not come. You sell a property, you get capital gains. You sell some shares, you get capital gains. Yes, some people who have got more assets having more capital gain. If that is so, you make it 12.5% above a particular slab. Why do you want to hit everybody? So they give some peanuts, 25,000 rupees, I'll give you more exemption, which makes no difference. And they increase the rate from 10 to 12.5. Let us say any capital gain above 50 lakhs will be 12.5%, and people will be better off and happy. And most of all, it is retrospective, because you had till the date of the budget indexation. Suddenly you remove it. Yes, you reduce the rate. That's fine. But indexation gave you better benefits. Then the income tax says property prices have gone up by 12 to 16% a year CAGR. Have you seen property prices go up 12 to 16% across the board? Most middle class live in apartments. Yes, for land it might have gone up, not for apartments. We asked them, show us the data. Nobody has shown the data. RBI says property price in the last 13 years has gone up 7 to 9%. So a lot of small things. Now, if they increase the indexation 31st of March, people will be happy.
So let me ask Rajat Sethi, the index...
One minute. See, what people want are small things, very small things, irrelevant things, which will make them happy, because people are upset. You did it with retrospective effect. When Jaitley put capital gains tax, he had grandfathering. So grandfather all the benefits till the budget and change it from the future. That's all. It is a simple thing. People will be happy. Why make this middle class who support is so angry?
So let me ask Rajat Sethi, the problem is that either the government, the reading of the mandate 2024 is either the middle class can be taken for granted because they are anyway not showing up, they are anyway not voting for us, or that that's the golden goose, so let's squeeze it a little more, because ultimately the voting class is the poor. It's the poor who voted Mr. Modi in 2014 and in 19, and it's the poor in some states at least which seem to have deserted him. Therefore, give more welfare to the poor at the cost of the middle class. In fact, the people who are most upset at the budget is not even the opposition. The people who are most upset at the budget, Rajat Sethi, if you look at social media, are the people who are ardent supporters of this government for the last 10 years.
Well, I agree, and this is why it's sort of an impossible proposition, wherein budgeting exercise by the very nature is a zero-sum problem. You will have to divide the fixed pie that you have before you in ways that you can actually serve the very last standing in the queue in the most deprived sections of our society. So, the problem statement in itself is such that it cannot satisfy everybody. That's the premise that you start off with. The second premise that BJP should have done around the budget is its communication. The anchoring conversation around the budget started on a slippery slope at the outset itself. Taxation slabs were modified. Even on this long-term capital gains, barely 2.5% was increased. Yes, it is 25% proportionately, but look at what the opposition was offering as an alternate economic idea. They were promising inheritance tax. What exactly is inheritance tax? Every single capital goods that you have would be taxed at, I don't know what, XYZ percentage. BJP should have lashed upon all the disastrous economic policies that the opposition was portraying in just the elections that got concluded, and sort of did a contrast and presented it before the same middle class, which is right now and is antagonized or is feeling upset about the budget propositions. I believe this is where the BJP should have put in much more efforts. It's not like the Congress party has some kind of a magic wand. Look at all the states that they are currently ruling in. They are in terrible financial distress. You can ask Mohandas why the state of affairs in Karnataka is absolutely horrible. They have cut a golden goose into myriads of pieces just to satisfy the political needs of various sections that they have promised doles after doles irresponsibly. They have promised gold coins in the state of Telangana. Look at Tamil Nadu. It's one of the most bankrupt states individually. If it were, to have managed its own finances, it cannot even run for a single day. Kerala government is so bankrupt that they had to go to the Supreme Court and were admonished by the Supreme Court also, and they said you cannot rightfully go out and ask for more money when you do not responsibly spend it. See, the problem is that alternate models are not present with the opposition party. BJP should have said that, okay, here is the budget. Hey, why don't you go out and balance it for me? Present an alternative model as to what you are trying to deliver to the middle class.
So,
And let's see what is there.
Mohan Kumar
This is
Mangalam,
where the-
you are running a government in Karnataka. You rode to power on the basis of these freebies, these guarantees, etc. Different estimates say anywhere between 30 to 50,000 crores is required to fulfill all the 5 or 6 guarantees that were made. Now, the point is the state is reeling. It is unable to meet all of those guarantees to the extent that, you know, the Road Transport Corporation there is considering raising rates. Electricity prices have been raised. Land registration prices have been raised. Milk prices have been raised. There's nothing that's not been raised in order to meet those extra 50,000 crores for you to keep the guarantees.
Saka, those guarantees are going to the common people of Karnataka, and I resent the assertion that these are freebies.
No.
Mohandas Paiji, will you let me talk?
I will
I didn't
explain.
interrupt when you talked. And let me explain to Mohandas Paiji also that the data that I got in terms of gross fixed capital formation
I'll give you data.
is from the World Bank, and it has stayed the same from in 2013 and 2024. It's still 31% of GDP, which really is no great increase despite how much money the government has pumped in as part of the GFCF, which clearly proves then that private investment is crowded out or private investment isn't coming, unlike what he says. Now, as far as whether it is Tamil Nadu, whether it's Telangana, Tamil Nadu, by the way, has a lower fiscal deficit than the government of India. So I'm not sure what he means by the fact that Tamil Nadu is going bankrupt, and that's my home state. So I'm not sure where these numbers Rajat is bringing out from. He also mentioned inheritance tax, which is widely ridiculous because nobody in Congress mentioned anywhere in our manifesto or anywhere in our promises that we were going to bring inheritance tax. Even where it's implemented across the world, it's above a certain minimum level of income that you're inheriting or assets that you're inheriting where you end up paying inheritance tax. In fact, the only people who spoke about it were people from the BJP. And as far as looking for new ideas, the BJP seems to be taking a page out of every page of our manifesto, when they're talking about employment-linked incentives, when they're talking about Pehli Naukri Pakki equivalents. They seem to be the one who are bereft of ideas that they're having to look into our manifesto to implement them.
Okay. Guru Prakash Paswan, whether it's the jobs thing, whether it is, giving 15,000 rupees in 3 tranches to people who are first-time employees, whether it is the internship scheme, the Congress's contention is, before the election, you were not even acknowledging that jobs is a problem. Now you are copy-pasting their manifesto and saying that, look, we've addressed the jobs problem. This is the opposition's contention.
No, Zaka, I think let me clear the air around the issue of inheritance tax. Mr. Sam Pitroda, he is none other than the overseas president of whatever the Congress party is, the foreign affairs of the Congress party. He is an active office bearer of the Congress party. He spoke about distribution of resources. He spoke about inheritance of taxes. And you removed his revocation. He has been reinstated by the Congress party. Point number 1. Point number 2, I challenge my friend from the Congress party. UPA year's average inflation rate, UPA year's average unemployment rate, NDA year's average inflation rate, and I did not speak when you were speaking on. Thank you so much. I throw a challenge. Average inflation rate, average unemployment rate, we are faring well. And thank you so much for bringing the issue of Karnataka. On the one hand, Mr. Rahul Gandhi will say, Halwa ceremony mein SC, ST, OBC kahan pe hai? In Karnataka, Zaka, you know what happened? The fund that was meant for the welfare of SC, ST communities, Lamborghini was bought. Lamborghini car was bought for the fund that was meant for the development of the scheduled caste communities. 35,000 crore. 35,000 crore. This is a report by the Mint newspaper that 35,000 crore that was went for the development of the SC student, SC scholarship, SC hostels that was diverted for no good reason, for the same reason of freebies that was mentioned in Telangana as well. Mr. Rahul Gandhi's hypocrisy, Mr. Rahul Gandhi's dual standard has absolutely no limits. He will speak of SC, ST, OBC, but the states in which he is in power. Who is the finance minister of Karnataka? Is he a Dalit OBC, SC, ST? Who is the finance minister of Telangana, Karnataka? Are they SC, ST, OBC? I want to ask you. So please spare us this. Please spare us this because this has no point. This is beyond my comprehension. Speak of it. And Zaka, you say about middle class. One last point. You say about middle class, but under the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana, this government has ensured our promise that 80 crore people will receive the food grain to the for 5 years. And this is inclusive growth that we mean.
Okay, so you're saying 80 crores free food grains is the inclusive growth that you're talking about. Just one point of fact. I'm not wanting to correct anyone here, but a question was asked about who is the finance minister of Karnataka. Siddaramaiah is the finance minister of Karnataka. He is an OBC leader, arguably the tallest OBC leader in that state. Who is the finance minister of Telangana is Batti Vikramarka, who is a Dalit leader. Again, a very senior Dalit leader in that state. So just a point that to answer the question that was asked. All right, we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us. Let's see how this plays out. The budget has been debated. The finance bill will likely get passed in the next few days. But like I said, yes, the finance minister has done a good job of trying to compare 10 years of NDA and 10 years of UPA and left to the voters to decide. Clearly, the voters have given their inclinations over the last 10 years. But more importantly, it still doesn't explain, or it still doesn't fully address the angst, the disappointment that some of the most ardent supporters of the Modi government have had because of some of the points in this budget, not least of which is the removal of indexation benefits.